What's up guys, I'm going to show you how to add join monster to your GraphQL server. Now for this example I'm going to use my GraphQL template, which the code is on GitHub if you'd like to follow along. Now from the last time I've changed this, I added a many-to-many relationship for this example. I created an author, a book, and a book author, these three models right here. So author has a first name, last name, and I made an association to the book, that way it can have a many-to-many. Just specifying that the join table is going to be book author and the foreign key is author ID. And then if we come over here to book, you can see I just have a title, and then we're connecting from the other side to create the many-to-many relationship with the author here. And then book author here, I wanted to create just one field in the join table here, so that way I could show you guys how do you get something. So I made the connection being whether they're the primary author. That doesn't really, if there's multiple authors on a book, maybe one's a secondary author or something or whatever. So yeah, so we're going to be getting this field when we're doing queries. And so yeah, that's the model we have set up. Let's go ahead and start working with join monster. Actually, before we do that, let me show you my schema too. I changed that as well, just adding an author type and a book type. So ID, first name, last name, primary, whether they're the primary author, and then we want to get a list of books that's related to the author, and then the book goes the other way, wants to get all the authors associated with that book, and then the title, and then the ID. So that's that, and then I just made 3 mutations: create author, create book, add book author, just to be able to add some data for this. And I'll just show you guys my resolvers real quick for this. Create book, you'll notice all I'm doing is grabbing the args, creating the book, and then returning those, and then returning empty for authors, since no authors are going to be in the book when you first create it. Same thing over here, but opposite for creating the author books, and then just here when I'm adding an author to a book, just creating and returning true. Okay, so that is the code I added. And now we're going to talk about queries and setting that up with join monster. But first, let's configure join monster on this server. Okay, so here's the join monster documentation. We'll be hitting that up later. I have an Apollo server, so I need to use this guy right here. So this is the README for join monster GraphQL tools adapter. This is the library to make it work with an Apollo server, which is what we're using. If you don't use Apollo server, you use something else, you do not have to use this adapter. But I like using Apollo, so I'm going to use this adapter. So I'm going to install this library and join monster as well. So I'm going to do yarn, add that library there, and then join monster. And then we'll have both of these. Okay, and then what we need to do here is we actually need to add some metadata. That's what all this junk is. And then we just add it to our schema here. So I'm going to copy this. Actually, I'm going to copy this here because we're going to be needing this. And you'll notice that nothing's going on with join monster. Join monster is in the resolvers. Here's the resolvers. Use join monster in the resolvers, and then use this adaptation to your schema. And that's it. That's all you have to do to get it set up. There's nothing else that they're doing. So let's go ahead and do that. So in my index page, at the top, not my models index, we're done with models. Index of the application, I'm just going to do an import, and we're going to say from this, and then we're just going to come down here, and we're going to create a join monster metadata from /join monster metadata. So this is where we're going to put, I'm going to create a file here called join monster metadata. So this is what we're going to put in all our stuff for join monster to configure it. And then right here we're just going to call join monster adapt on the schema, and then passing in any kind of configuration that we're going to have. And that's going to be metadata. And then we are all set here for join monster, configuring it with the schema. Now we just need to set up our metadata, which we're going to export default, just an object that's going to be, and we're going to come back and fill this in a second. First, let's in our schema, there's two types of queries I want to show you guys how to do. The first is just grabbing all the books or all the authors, and the second is grabbing a specific one. So the first query we're going to start with is going to be all books. And we're just going to return an array of books. So all books, what we're going to do is we're going to get an array of books, and in there we're also going to have an array of authors, right, for each one, because we have that as one of our types. So we're going to come over to our, not our index, our resolvers, and then in our queries, which is right here, we're going to say all books, and we can copy this, all books. What we're going to do here is call, this is where we actually call join monster. So come up to the top and do import join monster from join monster. And in our query here, we're going to call join monster. And this is exactly what we're going to pass it. So you can copy this, paste it in here. And so resolver info, this is the fourth parameter of the resolver. So info here is going to pass here. It also wants the context here, but this is any like arguments you want to pass. So the best thing to do here is just pass the args. Is what I found, is just pass that in. And then the dialect, we can put PostSQL if we want to. It should by default, actually I'm not sure if it will pick it up by default, so I guess it's good to put that there, PostgreSQL, or maybe, I'm actually not sure if it's pSQL or if it just goes by PostgreSQL. We'll put that there. I haven't actually put this before. If we get rid of it, it'll still work. So I'm going to actually just remove it because I don't remember what exactly we're supposed to, I don't know what the configuration is for pSQL, what it wants it there. Alright, and then here, what's going to happen is, I want to show you guys, before we even do this, we'll do console log SQL. And this will be console.log in all books. And we're just going to return an empty object, which will crash, of course. But that's fine. And in our metadata, that's fine. Now let's see if this will resolve for us. I want to call all books and show you guys what the value of SQL is. Now what it should be is, what it's going to do, it's going to read the query all books and see what, so all books over here. Okay, refresh. Oh, we crashed it. And the reason we crashed it is cannot find module join. Oh, I spelled monster wrong. In the index here, monster. There we go. Okay, yeah. So how that's gonna work? All right, cool. Is whatever we're gonna come over here, right, into GraphQL or graphical, and we're gonna say all books, right, and we're gonna specify which fields we want. Maybe you want to see the ID, author, and the title. So we want to see all the fields, right? And author, I just want to see the IDs. So it's going to read this query that we pass in, look at the different I don't know what to call these, subtypes, properties that we want to get back, and it's actually going to generate SQL to be executed. It doesn't run the SQL for you. It just tells you what it should be. And then we were going to run it with, what's it called, SQLize. So we're going to call models.sqlize.query on this. But first, let's print this out, show you guys what it looks like. But it doesn't actually know how to turn this right here into SQL unless we give it some metadata. So that's what we're going to do. And if we come here, we can kind of see what the metadata looks like. Here is an example, users and posts. Basically what's happening, these are the two important fields to put. For every type that you want, and for us there's two types associated with this join monster query, book and author. So here we're going to create two, just like this. So we're going to have a query. We don't need a query for now, since we will do a query in a minute, and you put all books here, but we're going to have a user, or not a user, we're going to have an author and a book. So an author here and a book. And then you tell it, and so the name here associated to a type, and then you tell it the table name in the database. So for here it's book, and the unique ID is equal to ID. And the same thing is for author. So now it knows that this is associated, and it looks over here into graphical. If you don't specify a property, then it assumes it has the same name in the database. So let's run this real quick, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So if we were to run this, for example, of course, must call join monster in a resolver on a field where type is decorated with SQL table. Oh, did I just do the wrong thing? Yeah, SQL table. I just totally made up my own props there, didn't unique key. So not unique ID, unique key, and then SQL table. My bad. Okay. There we go, maps to SQL table. Also maps to, you must define SQL join, SQL, okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, it's crashing. I wanted to show you guys. I wanted to see if it would let me just like print the SQL out, but it won't even let me do the SQL. It's forcing me to make a join because it knows. But title, for example, the name of this is in the database, is the same in the database, so I don't need to do anything. But authors, for example, that's not just in the database. I mean, it's in the database, but we have to specify we want to do a join, and we want to do a many-to-many join. So to do a many-to-many join, we have to make a junction like this. So I'm going to copy this right here. This is from the documentation, and I'm going to adjust this for how we want to do it. So we are doing, the first thing we're doing is book, right? All books. So one of the fields here, and you'll notice in this we specify fields, and we basically say how to resolve each field here. So the only field I need to tell it to resolve is authors, because that one's a little bit different, and that's where I'm going to put the junction in. So go ahead and format that. We're going to change this. The junction is for many-to-many relationships. You could also put title as another field if you want to change how title is being resolved, but we like how title is being resolved because it's just a normal property. Okay, so SQL table here is going to be book, name of our model, book author. And this thing, I think I need to wrap it in double quotes, and the reason for that is I have an uppercase A here, and so SQLize does not, or not SQLize, but PostgreSQL handles it like that. So include here, this is the include, you'd put in all the fields you want to grab from the join table. So for us, that is primary. So that was what I added book author, right? Primary here. So any field you want to grab, you want to put it in the include, and you can do multiple keys here. And then here you say how to actually do the SQL join. So here is the first one here is going to be a book table. Here is going to be the join table, or we can call it junction table, that's fine. And oops, spelled table wrong. And then here, this is going to be the author table. So if there was any arguments, we could grab the arguments, but we don't need any. And that's passed in with the context I was talking about earlier, right here. That's passed in here. And, okay. So book table and junction table. We're going to say book table dot ID is equal to junction table, and we called this book ID, and we're gonna have to wrap this in quotation marks. Same reason, there's an uppercase I. And then here we're gonna say, and this is author. We're gonna oops. So junction table, we're gonna specify the author ID. And then here, we're going to put author table.id. So this is just the logic for how we want to join the two tables together. So we want to say which property we want to look at to actually do the join. So the ID and the book ID should be the same, where we're looking at the book table. Here, the author ID should match the author table ID. So that's just how we do our join. And then this looks pretty good to me. I think this should now work. We have no errors over here in our server, so let's come back to graphical and run this. Must return a promise or so we are just printing the SQL. So you'll notice here, this is the SQL that it prints out. So it created all books as ID, all books.title. So it's grabbing the title and the ID. And then here you'll see that join that we created. So book author, and you can see how like junky, like underscore book auth, like it's a little junky. And some of the like they'll prefix it and stuff, the SQL. But if we were to go and run this SQL, it would actually work and fetch back what we want. And you can notice it add joins. And the nice thing is, as you guys probably know, if you know about Join Monster, is if I were to get rid of that and just go for the ID and the title, it would just do a select statement here, and notice how the joins are gone because we don't need to join to get the ID and the title. So it only runs for the fields that we need. But okay, let's go ahead and run that and do finish this example off. So let's go ahead and return models.sequelize, and I forget how to do a raw query. I think it's just query. We'll have to see. Actually, let's just Google it real quick. Sequelize raw query. I believe it's just .query. Yeah, it is .query, and we can run it with this type sequelize select. That way we're only returning JSON, because a lot of crap comes back from sequelize if you don't do this. So okay, so we're going to do a query passing in the SQL we have, and then just doing models.sequelize.querytype.select there. Let's see if we can drop this to another line. Okay. So just running the query, and that's what's going to get returned here. And then this junk here, this type, is just specifies, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but the type just simplifies. It doesn't return as much sequelize, makes the ORM less heavy. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. Relation book does not exist. Could be uppercase, no, it's not uppercase. Oh, it's books. I think it's called books. So we're going to come into our database real quick and see what it's called. You need to make sure the names are matching. For us, I don't think the names are matching. So select all from book. Yep. See how my thing is called books? I forgot sequelize automatically pluralizes. So that just means we have to say books here and authors here. Okay. Now rerun this. And okay, so I had 2 books in the database that I already added. We're getting the ID, the most boring book ever, and just another book. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the authors for these books using the ID and the name and first name, and go ahead and run that. Book author does not exist. Could be book authors. Let's see what it's called. Yep, book authors. So just if you are having trouble with what your table names are, just go look in your database, maybe using pSQL like I am, or another method to see what your table names are. And we'll go ahead and rerun this. We have no authors here. I think the join got messed up because we're supposed to have authors. So if this happens for you, what I like to do is just execute the query over here and see what happens. But also let's select all from book authors, yeah. Oh, okay, none have actually gotten created. So I thought I had run my resolver here to create one, but it looks like I didn't. So down here I have, oh, add book author is creating another author. That's awkward. I meant to do, no wonder it wasn't working. Here I meant to call book author to create the relationship. So rerun that. So let's add some book authors. So as you see, I have 2 books here. Add, I need to make this a mutation. Add book author. So book ID, so let's add this to book 1. And the author ID, I already created some authors. We'll do author ID 1, and we'll make this guy the primary author. So we'll say true here. So go ahead and run that. Violates the key constraint. Book authors. Okay, so it looks like I don't have any authors. I thought I had added authors. I must have look, see I have authors. Oh, his ID is 10 for some reason. It's not 1. So 10, 11, 12. Alright, we created an author. Now if we come back to our query, we can do all books. Title, authors. ID, last name, first name. Alright, cool. And we see Bob, and we can notice we can actually get the primary field, and we see it's true. So nice. So our query worked. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back to our mutation. Oops. And I'm going to add another author to this book. I'm going to say this is false. So I just added another author, and then to book 2, I'll add this 13th or the 12th author. This guy will be primary. So just added 2 more authors. Now we can do that query again and make sure all books is working like we like it. But as you can see, this is how you do a many-to-many relationship 1. So first name, last name, primary. So Bob, Joe is true, false, true, and we're getting the authors. So nice. And you'll notice how we're doing the join. If we come over here, you can see this is the SQL getting run on the database. Now, there's 2 more things I want to do. The first one I know works. Second one I hope works. I haven't tried doing it both ways. So like putting a join. So we have a junction here for books, but what if we want to get all authors and get the books associated with them? That's what I want to try next. But before that, let's do a query. Let's do this in our schema. Let's say we want to get a particular book. So get book, and we pass in the ID. So int or ID could be int, and we want to turn a book. We can return a null book because if they give us a bad ID. So how do we take in the arguments and do a query with a join monster is the point of this. So in our resolvers here, we're going to come up to the top where we did all books, and we're going to copy it. And this we're going to do, what should we call this? It should match, we said good book. So one of our argument here is going to be the ID, right? So we need to use that ID to find it. This is actually, we keep the same, right? We only need to change the metadata for this. So we come into join monster, and we're passing in those arguments, remember? So the arguments that we get here, we're gonna have an ID, we're passing those to join monster. And then here we're gonna do fields, and then for query, we want that name to match up with our query, so get book. So I'm gonna say get book here, and then here we're gonna do where, and we can come and I'll show you guys where it is here. So where gives us the table, the arguments, and we can go ahead and do our where clause. So I can go ahead and copy this. So this is the where clause for our select statement. But something I noticed is args is null for me, and this third parameter, so empty, args here is not null. I don't know why, but I tried doing this with, I thought the args here would have stuff in it, but for whatever reason, args is this position in this function. So this will work now. So we're passing the ID. We're going to call args.id. Looks like just need to put a comma there. So the table name is going to be the one we grab here. So we're going to get the SQL table name books since we're returning a book, and it's going to say books.id is equal to the ID that's passed in, and that's it. So assuming we didn't make any errors, let's see this at work. So all books, let's get this first book. So actually, oops. Instead of calling all books, we're just called get book. And let's refresh this so I can get it autocomplete for me. An ID of 1. And bam, we just got the first book. And same thing as before, we get all that functionality that we had super easy, right? So now if we query, just like before, if we don't query authors, we don't do a join. We only do the join if we query authors. So rerun it, we don't do a join here. Super cool, right? So all we had to do is specify how we get it with this where. And notice in our resolvers, we just kind of copy and pasted this thing here. So it's super fast to add queries on with this. So that's what I really like about it. So let's do one last query. All authors. I have not tried this before, so I do not know if this will work. I hope it does. It will make sense if it does. So all authors, what I want to do is do a very similar thing that I am doing for books, right? So the books field of author, I need to do a join. I need to do it on the book authors table. I don't care about, actually no, I do care about primary, right? I want to see if the author is primary or not still. So we can keep that there. And actually, I think I can keep everything the same, except for our SQL joins. Because author is then here, the author table is going to be first. So actually, can I, yeah. So I actually need to flip-flop these. So author table, and then this is going to be a book table. So this is going to be book table. This is going to be author table. So we need to flip these as well. Author ID and book ID. All right. And we'll come over here. Oh yeah, first we need to come to our resolvers too. So copy paste this, and we say all authors. All right. Refresh that. Alright, looks like there might have been, yep, crashed something. Oh, I put a semicolon. Oh, that's fine. Is it? Should be fine. I think I just messed up the curly braces somewhere. So let's see that. I mean, these look good. Semicolon at the end is fine, right? Yeah. Fields ends there. Books ends there. I don't understand what I messed up. Oh, everything formatted and looks like it fixed itself. It just looks like I forgot a curly brace somewhere. Alright. Refresh. So let's call all books, or sorry, all authors. So ID, last name, first name. Cannot do null for non-nullable field. Alright, so something did not work. So let's take a look at the SQL that's getting executed. Last name, first name. So let's go ahead and copy this and run this here to see what's getting output. So we're getting a last, oh, looks like these fields might be messing things up. So what I'm going to do is say delete from authors where ID is greater than 12. And now if we were to do the select again, we only get good rows. So I had some bad data in there that I was messing up, but okay, so it looks like we're doing good here. So now if I do books, also let's see if we can do primary here. Primary, yeah, primary doesn't really make sense. primary, I'm going to have to do a join on it. So I'm going to have to fix that. So books, ID, but if I do books here, I feel like maybe I can get a primary on it as well, because we're joining on the book table. Nope. I don't know how to get primary from all authors, but I don't think it really makes sense. So I think that's okay. Alright, so title, yeah. All authors stuff. Oh. So in our author fields, oh, we have books here. What's happening? So column all authors dot books does not exist. So books here should be lining up with the field that we have here, and it should do this junction thing. So we are returning an author from all authors. Yeah, all authors returns an author. So fields, books. I'm gonna make sure in my schema I have books here. Yep, books. Its type is book. This looks all good to me. I wouldn't think we get that error. I'm gonna try getting rid of this primary. Column all authors dot books does not exist. Okay, let's see what the SQL. So when we run this, I think it's still running the SQL, and back here, let's see the SQL that it's generating. Yep, it's executing SQL. So dot books. Oh, something weird's happening, right? Because I'm specifying the field here. Okay, I broke something. So when I added this curly brace down here, it was supposed to go up here. And put a comma here. There we go. So I messed things up when I did that, so let's rerun this. Alright, so this is better. So all authors, we can see Joe is the author of this book here. Todd is the author of this book, and Mark is the author of this book. And we can see that there's an overlap here. So I still think primary is not going to work. And it doesn't. Okay. That's what I expected. I also got... No, I didn't get rid of it there. To get primary to work, guys, I think what you would need to do is to do primary here in the fields, and then do a junction. Let's try it and see what happens. Actually, this doesn't even make sense, right? Because we're getting an author can only be primary on the other end. So I was going to add primary here, but notice how Joe can be primary in one book, the primary author of one book, but a secondary author of another book. So it doesn't make sense to have the primary field in this query. So actually, I think this is totally fine. And I think this works. I think there's nothing I would change about this now. I think author's good, book is good, and this good book query is good. And by the way, get author would be the same logic here, or similar logic. Not the exact same, right? But you would do the similar thing. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope that helps on how to set up queries with Join Monster. And you'll notice how it only has to do with queries. Join Monster does not help with mutations. This is for batch querying. But I think this is pretty cool, right? I really like this. It's super fast to set up different stuff. Like, we have to do a little work here, right, to set up the metadata, but once you set up the metadata, you saw how fast we're able to just add on queries that are really efficient because they're only doing it on the fields that they need for the properties that they need. And then we just copy and paste for each query. So I'm in love with this library. I really like it. Let me know if you guys are having trouble with Join Monster making any queries, because it can be a little weird. So far, I haven't had any problems. Like, any query I wanted to make with Join Monster, I've been able to figure it out. So let me know if you guys are having any troubles with any queries you're trying to make. I want to test this guy out and see how good Join Monster really is. and if there's anything that's missing. So if you guys have found anything, let me know. I'd love to know about it and see if there's a way to do it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.